checking out the Nifty Q Show.
All right, good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome in to the Nifty Q Show. We're interviewing founders, leaders, and builders in the NFT and Web3 industry. Today, I'm sitting with my main man, Gifdead, co-founder of Nifty Castle, Web3 entrepreneur, and just overall colossus of clout, Sultan of SWAT, whatever you want to call him. He's just all over the place. We'll be touching on the next cycle for NFTs and Web3, what that might look like here in the next coming years, building brands correctly in our industry, what current media networks get wrong, and much more. Thank you for joining today. Gif, what is up, my man? What's going on?
Bro, I'm just happy to be here. As always with you, the man, Nifty Q, the lads, our vibe, our tribe. You know what it is. Yeah, man, it's already been like a big morning. You know, we did our morning alpha show, 2 hours with an amazing designer this morning, Louis Fern, and I'm kind of still high and like processing all of the awesome, conversation and information from that. But other than that, bro, did you just throw out Sultan of SWAT?
I did. Come on, man.
Wait, what?
The Sandlot?
Yeah. No, that's a legit OG reference. Callback.
Yeah,
I love that, man.
Full callback. I'll tell you one quick story. When we had the Sandlot guys actually, and I'm saying almost Sandbox now because that's part of the story, which I just tell horrible stories because I gave it up right before. But we were interviewing the Sandlot guys on NFT Live, and Buffalo full on called those guys like Sandbox multiple times.
I was watching.
You were watching?
I was watching. Yeah. It was hilarious. I mean, look, we all do it. We all have our off days. So, no sweat, Buff. We love you. You're in the zone. He was probably, like controlling 50 different switchers and like doing a million different things. So you can't hold that one against them. But a little Freudian slip here every once in a while. It's totally natural, totally human.
Buff.
But no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say Buff Gif had your back really hard there, which is very true. He was definitely clicking like 8,000 buttons when we were with them, but that's a cool memory. What were you going to say?
Well, my favorite, I mean, that movie's amazing. Like growing up, it was definitely like, it's a classic, but I still to this day reference the forever, like that part. I think I probably say that like 5 times a week.
Yeah, man. You're hosting an episode pretty much 5 times a week at this point. You do like 4 episodes Monday through Thursday. Do you like roll out of bed for Web3? Like, do you literally just like hop out of bed, turn on Spaces, and you're just like always caffeinating as you go?
Basically, yeah. But I mean, look, I get up at least an hour early, but sometimes like today, it's so hard to get up that I'm basically rolling out of bed and then tapping right into the Twitterverse, right? But yeah, I mean, you know what it's like Nifty Q, bro. How many shows a week are you hosting, right? I mean, it's almost like pot calling the kettle black here. You know what it's all about as a a media tycoon building the city of LADZ.
Oh my
right?
God, dude, do not reference me as a tycoon ever until we're like standing on that main stage. I want to give a quick shout out to the chat here: Hash Rhymes, Asmodai, Easy and Crypto, Fun Uncle. Todd Mayek, or I might be saying that wrong, but he said peace. So our vibe, our tribe, to all of you that are tuning in here. This is the Nifty Q Show. We do this Tuesday, Thursday, every week around this time, 2 to 2:30. You can catch us here. And I am sitting with Gifdead, a serial Web3 entrepreneur. Let's hit that Web3 stuff, man. Let's talk about what you're doing on the daily as far as the show is concerned and like what you are planning with Web3.
Yeah, I mean, where to start, right? There's a lot to it, but high level right now, Web3 it's a vision of a platform and a community that we are starting to build in just whatever ways that we can. What that looks like, first and foremost is, as you mentioned, we have our morning alpha show 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. We do that starting at 8 a.m. my time. Again, you were mentioning like rolling out of bed. So it is early for me to be waking up like that. The structure's great though, right? Like I need it in my life. But Monday through Thursday, we do the Morning Alpha Show on Twitter Spaces. GM Web3 is what that's called. We do some artist interviews, do some alpha, but also like sometimes just dig into different topics. Like Tuesdays, we do Tech Tuesdays. We have a whole bunch of like a rotating crew of amazing artists, contributors, collaborators that come up, and we all like just dig into all kinds of stuff and have a good time doing it. I mean, that's always important, right? It's got to be entertaining.
I'm having a great time
the
in there, dude. I those are kind of your crew of people, but they're slowly, I feel like the more I show up, it's just like a little kind of mini family that's like starting to like kind of like know each other's voices. Although again, I'm talking from my perspective, like I'm starting to like put a profile picture to a face, if you will. So it's fun. You do a great job of kind of leading the convos.
Heck yeah. I appreciate that. But that vibe of like good people, good vibes, good music, it's like, that is a big part of what the Nifty Castle has always been from when we started on Clubhouse. And so this is kind of like a new home for that Nifty Castle family, and then also bringing in new people, right? So, there's new friends, new contributors joining all the time, like Maximilian, she's a new friend that's been hopping in and contributing a lot. Genetics, like these are amazing, new artists, new collaborators that are coming into the show regularly and providing a lot of value. So it's a great way to not just like have a home to keep, building on the Nifty Castle community, but really also adding in a lot more flavors and, new pieces to that.
Yeah, I want to get into like a timeline discussion, also get kind of a little bit of your background, right? Just to give some people context on what you're doing now. But you seem to like, obviously through these episodes, have more of a pulse on what's going on in the space right now. People always want to get that like take of where we're at. So give me a little bit of where you think this market is at in like an overall sense. Just being, on a daily show, I feel like you get to be on the pulse.
I mean, again, thanks. You're saying all these nice things to me. I suck at taking compliments, so that's a struggle for me in the first place. But one of the values of joining the show, being part of the show, getting to host the show, from my perspective, or contribute to it on a regular basis, right, is that this is my full-time job now. As of mid December, I quit my agency job. Building Web3, being a Web3 entrepreneur is all I do. And so, that is one way to stay, to your point, like really tapped into the community, what's happening on a day-to-day, stay on top of the pulse. And I get a lot of value that way, talking to a bunch of people who are much smarter than I am, right? It's like, it's literally, you get to participate in this, what is it? This exercise of surrounding myself with smarter people than I am, right? So bringing on really smart people to school me in all the different things, and hopefully I can help translate that, or we can bring in other people to help ask questions, so that everybody listening is benefiting, and we're all kind of building and learning together, right? And so there's a lot of value just from being consistent, waking up 4 days a week, getting in there and discussing these ongoing topics and trends with some really smart people. Where are we at right now? The way that I think of it is like a liminal, like really, really macro. We're in this liminal space where we've got 1 foot in Web 2 and 1 foot in Web 3, right? So we're not in Web 3 yet. We're in like Web 2.2 or 2.5 or whatever you want to say. So liminal just means it's transitional. We are in the in between. We're like moving between these two things, right? And so, and it's also very young. So what all of this equals is this like awkward, like preteen adolescent phase, in my view. We're not even like teenagers yet. You know what I mean? Like we are crawling, just trying to start to walk a little bit, and like we've kind of got some legs, so now we're like starting to walk. So we're in that kind of like preteen phase of what this larger life cycle, this technology life cycle looks like, in my opinion. And so there's a lot of opportunity, but it's also, again, it's awkward. There's going to be a lot of growing pains. But if you can stick with it, if you can stick it out, then, on the other side of that, you have not just your glorious, teenage years, but then the golden years of your life, which I believe are coming. in the next 5 to 10 years. So yeah, it's the people that are really in this right now are literally the architects of the metaverse, and in whatever way that you're participating, like even in the small act of onboarding or buying NFTs and like moving into this decentralized ecosystem of, not just tangible value and wealth, but ideas and other intangible values, right? Like we are actually participating in this transition, moving into Web3 together and all building that together. And so I really do feel that way about like all the people that are in the space right now that are trying to push it forward, that they're all architects of the metaverse.
It's an interesting timeline that we're in too, because we're in this like bear market-ish scenario, right? Like it definitely feels like maybe we're coming out of it, but throughout the past maybe better part of a year, we still see big brands making the transition, seeing and having some of their visions kind of come to life. Whereas the last bear market felt like everyone was just like, there was no plans that were ongoing before it hit. So like nothing happened, right? But like we've been talking in the last 2 weeks, I would say, about all of these bigger brands, Tiffany's and Co. Gucci got into the space via Ape as well. Like, what does that mean for the space long term? Like that larger brands are getting in right now in this bear market, where it's not like this crazy euphoria like an SNL skit, but brands actually, coming into the space. And which ones have been your favorite?
Oh man, which other ones have been my favorite? I don't know. So you know what? A lot of people shit on Tiffany's. So I'll reverse engineer your question because it's the last one so it's the first one in my mind. A lot of people shit on Tiffany's because they're like, oh, like they don't matter anymore. They're too expensive or like whatever. People are gonna gripe about a million things, of course. But I actually think that what Tiffany's did with the punk necklaces is a much better execution from a brand perspective than many, maybe even most of the other, brand entries into the space, because it's very targeted, very specific, very on brand for them. They partnered with, the high-end prestige PFP project. They are future-proofing their brand, making themselves, their legacy brand, more relevant to the Web3, younger audiences by doing this. And they're retaining that high-end brand appeal. And they're not trying to do everything all at once. This is like, here's the free consulting for all the brands and people listening out there, is like, don't try and have 50 million different, talking points or messaging points. Don't try and be everything to everyone when you first come into the space, because you're new here again. It's like, even if you have this old Web2, legacy brand and all of this brand equity out there in the traditional Web2 space, whatever, you're new here. So you can't just jump in and be everything to everybody, right? You've really got to find your specialty, plant that flag. And so I think Tiffany's is doing that very, very well with what they've done. They're not trying to do a million things. It's very simple. And to me, again, it just makes total sense for the Tiffany's brand to be entering that way. What was the first part of the question?
You kind of answered both, right? Like I was talking about like what are brands doing, well, and what aren't they doing well, right? With this move in the bear market where we see all these, larger pieces start to move in. So it's a cool.
What does it mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you're asking like, what does it mean to be having Gucci and Tiffany's and Tag Heuer, or however you say that, coming into the market right now? I think it's just incredibly bullish, right? It's like a lot of the people that are running these brands are very smart people, right? Like there's some incredibly smart people managing the biggest brands in the world, and that's how they continue to be successful, continue to retain that value, reinvent themselves in all these different ways. And I think it's incredibly bullish because those people understand that, whatever the market's doing day to day, it doesn't matter. If you step back and you look at the macro trend of technology, technological adoption, of what's happening with Web3, what's happening with crypto and blockchain, they get it. And I think it feels to me like some of these recent moves are bigger long-term plays instead of those short-term cash grabs that, we've definitely seen some celebrities and some brands try in the past.
So I have that was kind of an easy question there. I kind of gave you a softball. So I'm going to give you a hardball / let the community know how GIF thinks about this next adoption cycle, right? So like we're moving from what, again, many call a bear market to what eventually, hopefully, will be a bull market, everything macro factors considered. GIF thinks that maybe NFTs won't be the terminology, the moniker, which our kind of industry has relied on up to this point, and it will likely be Web3. Give me the thesis, give me the pitch on why maybe you think NFTs will run their course long term, or be seen as something of an umbrella term under Web3, if I said that correctly.
Yeah, no, I think that was pretty well stated. Yeah, there's so much that comes into this, right? Because you've got psychology, you've got just general like human behavior that has to do with all these things. But I think what I'll try and like piece out a couple steps and like parse this out, right? So most people who are in the space, like it's actually we're still speaking to a very small community. Like it's not that widely adopted, right? Like we're in it all the time. So it's like it feels like it's the whole world, but it's actually a very, very small percentage of people that are actually participating in deep into NFTs and crypto like we are. Outside of our bubble, the whole world's out there. And when you say things to them like blockchain, crypto, and NFTs, a lot of them immediately just turn off. Like they're just like not interested. They're scared. Whatever. It doesn't matter why, right? Like there's been a lot of FUD. You know, the mainstream media has all they've talked about is the negative headlines about the Silk Road and the underground and human trafficking and environmental issues. Like all of that may or may not be true. That's not the point. The point is that the public perception broadly of these things is already very, very negative. Mm-hmm. And once those belief systems are ingrained into a public consciousness, it becomes extremely hard to upend that or overturn it. However, when you say Web3 to people and you're like, oh, it's the new internet, it's less scary because we've had the internet now for 10 to 15 years. Most people have adopted the internet. Even if they were scared of that at first, by now, most people are like, yeah, I use the internet every single day. It's not scary anymore, right? And so I think that's the difference between a term like Web3, which also encompasses all of these different parts, right? So you've got metaverse, AR, VR, gaming, NFTs, art, innovative technology, all these different things can also fit underneath that umbrella. So as far as, what we're doing with Web3 and building that out into events and just different experiences and content is really, I think, planting a flag where I'm imagining a lot of this is going to be going in terms of a mainstream contract. And, just to put a finer point on that, Instagram is rolling out their NFT product globally right now, and it's not called NFTs, right? Because they've probably done the research. They probably understand that there's a problem with positioning and communication around NFTs and getting new people to adopt it, just given the amount of negative baggage and FUD that's out there.
It's a great thesis there. I want to touch on one more point till we get into your background. I do want kind of a quick, your history essentially before you got into the crypto space. Of course, that question, seems to come up a lot. But anyways, Asmodai says lots of talk on licensing versus CCO decision on Moonbirds and possible clause in Tiffany's giving up IP rights of punks. This wasn't on the dashboard. I wasn't really going to touch on this, but I mean, it is a current event, and we were talking about it this week on the GM Web3 show. Would love to get your take on what this, means for the space. Also, I did see Sarah's script this morning is doing a derivative of, in a sense, of Moonbirds after the CCO stuff, and it seems to be doing very well. It's sold out and all that stuff. So, congrats to her. But yeah, what do you make of the CCO Moonbirds stuff that we've been seeing?
Yeah, first of all, shout out Sarah's script. Moonbirds, that is the derivative. She just launched it, just sold it out, which is huge, y'all. And she deserves it, man. She just moved to New York during a bear market. So go support Sarah Script any way that you can. She's an amazing artist, amazing person. And yeah, the Moonbirds are a derivative it's a direct response to the Moonbirds going CCO, which is controversial because of the way that they rolled it out and kind of, misled their community about owning the IP and then giving it up without actually making that a community decision. That's a whole other conversation that we could go into. I think that's already been done to death on Twitter Spaces probably. But yeah, like, what does it mean? That's the more interesting conversation, I think, too, right? CC0, CCO is just basically a waiver of your copyright to whatever it is, right? It just says you can go do whatever you want. It doesn't give you trademark for Moonbirds, but it says the artwork you can go create and do basically anything, and there's no legal structure to come after you or stop you. We don't care. Like, go to town, right? And this is CC0. My understanding has actually been around as part of the Creative Commons frameworks for a while, but is now being adopted into NFTs as sort of the next step of the distributed IP, movement, right? That Bored Apes kind of kicked off.
Are there any large brands that we know about, like traditional brands that do CCO, that like might be a...
So not that I know of, right? And so, you've also been asking about my background. I've been working in branding and marketing for 15 years. And, we can dig more into that. The last 5 years or so, I was working with Electronic Arts and Ubisoft on their big global game launches. So, some gaming experience too. But yeah, like, I don't know of any specific big global brands that have ever operated this way, which is part of why it is a revolutionary new paradigm. That's part of why what Bored Apes has done is so special, because they've led a charge in, one of the things that is truly revolutionary and new and different about NFT technology and this whole community and this movement. Because prior to that, the way that any global brand is operating is that they've got a team of lawyers and they are actively going after anybody that is infringing on their copyrights. They're protecting the brand, right? They're very, very protective. And, if you've ever tried to, create any sort of Disney or Marvel, artwork and sell it, then you've probably had conversations with some of their lawyers or gotten letters from them. Nintendo and Disney are like two of the most famous cases of, they're constantly going after people and trying to, it's like whack-a-mole, right? Like, constantly trying to protect that IP. And the common like knowledge from a branding perspective is that that's how you do it. And all of a sudden it's like, what if that's not how you do it anymore? What if the internet and being an internet brand and becoming a meme is actually more valuable than trying to protect your IP and build it that old-fashioned way? And so that's the experiment that we are actively like watching happen. Like, we don't know how this is going to actually end up. It's very hard to say like what's really going to happen. Is it ultimately like a massive success or a failure? I think it'll be a mix. There will be some places where it works really well, some places where it doesn't work as well. I can say for us, Nifty Castle, DBs, WitchyGF, we have a custom licensing agreement that does share IP, but also includes the protection against, bad actors, that's one of the major risks with CC0 is that you have no protection, no recourse. If the Proud Boys want to take a Moonbird and go make it a symbol of their hate group, there's nothing you can do about that. And that could potentially be very damaging for the community or the brand. They're gambling that, like, even with whatever negativity comes into the space, just getting it out there and letting it free is going to be a net positive.
Yeah, guys, I'm sitting here with Gifdead, serial Web3 entrepreneur, co-founder Nifty Castle, all the above. I could go on and on and on. And we're talking branding, we're talking CCO. Igor is saying, true, such an interesting time to be alive, and Easy in Crypto saying Insta, mentioning your Instagram piece there. Just a quick mention on what actually happened with the CCO stuff and why the execution was super poor is because they didn't actually beforehand say anything about this potentially getting taken away. So one of the features of most NFTs, and that comes to my next question, GIF, so get ready for that one. But one of the features of like a Bored Ape, for example, is that I feel like I own the features of this ape, right? Somebody can't take this ape and then do what they want with it from an image standpoint, and just, you know, go off and create whatever brand they want off my ape. That is no longer the case in Moonbirds, and it was rolled out very shadily is probably the you know, the nice term for it, but they kind of just dropped it on the community and then said, hey, we're going to form a DAO though, and we're going to do all this stuff together. So any last thoughts on CCO there before I get to my question?
No, I think it's been covered pretty well, and I think you just hit on, you know, more of the finer points of like why it's been controversial specific to the Moonbirds. I see a lot of value in shared IP in general. I do worry about the risk of like not being able to protect the community, but like I don't know, man. Like it's again, it's a cool experiment. I don't endorse necessarily making big decisions without, you know, talking to your community, but that's them.
Here's my final question as we wrap up this CCO topic. Is this just the most high profile project that's gotten involved in this, or has there been other projects that have launched this way in this Web3 fashion that you mentioned?
It seems like a lot are now. Like, I don't know. Now I'm seeing like everybody, it's CCO summer, right? I think this is the most high profile one to be doing it. And now, you know, again, like the meta is just like it's chasing everything, right? Whenever there's a big splash and something gets a lot of attention, there's a million other copycats that come and do that same thing right after it. And to be honest, it's like that's actually part of why CC0 might have some validity. It's actually playing into that behavior of the community to just, you know, whenever there's a new thing, just take it, run with it, make it into your own, memeify it. I don't know, man. Like Xcopy is the other like big artist that I've seen, you know, making waves recently, because, you know, that's it's very different too when you've got like a PFP and a one of one artist who's been, you know, working on their stuff and then offering CC0 on their stuff. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest, because that's to your point about identity. Like there's a lot of value in PFPs as your identity and being able to build your own brand off that. And you're taking that away because anybody can do, like if anybody owns it, then nobody owns it, right? Yep. And I think I said it on another episode, right? And like it belongs to the streets, right? It doesn't belong to you anymore. So even if you have that token and you can resell it, the IP does not belong to you, is what I mean. And so especially for a one of one piece of art, like, you know, I would rather retain that IP or own that outright or something, I think, than have it be CC0, because then anybody can take my NFT art and create whatever the heck they want. So it's interesting.
Interesting is probably the soft way of saying that, right? Like we're in an industry founded on scarcity. If you look at Bitcoin existing is because literally of scarcity. So you have this big backlash because giving it to the streets, as you mentioned, is just opening it up and against the values potentially of an industry primarily based on flipping because there's a low supply of something or things like this.
Yeah, it's a really good point, but it's actually competing values, right? Because there's also, again, this sort of like internet culture of like taking whatever and just making something new out of whatever, right? So it's like there's that value competing with, to your point, the value of introducing scarcity into digital art. So I actually agree with you there that I do feel like from an artist perspective, you are kind of going back to the original internet model that I think a lot of digital artists were trying to escape. And that is a little bit confusing.
I want to go back to one of the first comments here. DJ Savage was in the house saying sick DB's hat, which leads me into my next comment here or topic that we can go into. Yep, as he turns it around. Love it. Is your background all the way up to, you know, founding DBs? It doesn't have to be a book by any means, but give us a little bit of context on, you know, what you were doing prior to sitting here today.
Yeah, so I've been working, like I said, in branding and marketing for about 15 years, entertainment branding and marketing the last 10 or so. I moved out to the West Coast to finish grad school, get my master's in entertainment industry management. And then, you know, started working in creative agency world out here in LA. And, you know, I've been doing that, had my own agency for a bit, worked at Electronic Arts at their headquarters, actually, you know, working on the brand side of a global gaming company, on their new product launches, on the new games that they were launching. And then most recently was working at the biggest influencer agency in the world, managing multi-million-dollar influencer campaigns for Ubisoft and all their new games. That's my background, branding and marketing. But I've been a creative and an artist my whole life. The real reason why I got into that was because it seemed like the only way that I could make a living as a creative was doing creative marketing and creative producing. But yeah, generally, I'm just a creative producer in general. I just like to scale creative ideas, find ways to put creatives together, make ideas come to life. What I don't like is when people are just talking all the time and there's no execution. And so that's what I really look for and I try and solve, right?
Yeah, you're in the wrong industry, man. Come on. There's like half of the people in this industry are talkers at this point, but that's a little bit too much shade. Maybe not half. Anyways, you mentioned
I thought that was generous.
Okay.
I don't know. I thought that was
EA and Ubisoft. What are the differences between those two brands in the way they went about branding themselves? And then, did you work outside of the gaming industry as well? In those kind of roles? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, the last question I'll answer first. Again, I'm totally like a reverse engineering mind. Like I just work backwards. So yeah, like entertainment branding, marketing, I worked with most of the big entertainment brands that you could ever imagine, from TV to film to digital media, things like AMC and Red Bull and Amazon Prime, Hulu. So like all those types of brands, that's like what I was working on at the creative agency side, helping with strategy, helping to, refresh those brands, develop new brands, sub brands, reinvent them, or just create, creative expressions and activations around those brands, things like that. And then when I started working on electronic arts, that's how I ended up working there. So I actually wrote, I was the lead strategist on the UFC rebrand. So when UFC came to my creative agency, they basically did a total rebrand. Like you might remember that the UFC used to have a wrench as the C, and it was very much just like cage fighting. It was like if you remember, it was not accessible. It was not cool. It was just like a bunch of cage fighting bros, and they had a wrench as part of their logo, and it was not nearly what it is now. And so we actually went through with them the whole rebrand from the strategy phase to the actual development and rollout and execution of them becoming the global sports enterprise that they are today. And a lot of that looked like getting away from those negative stereotypes, again, upending the negative stereotypes of what the UFC was, of just like blood and guts and cage fighting and just being like for men only and just really aggressive and ugly and kind of underground, to being now like it's one of the biggest sports in the world, and it's appreciated for being art. It's got jujitsu, and it's got mixed martial arts, and it's got stories, like it's got real artists and artisans and craftsmen that are like warriors of a new era. And so it's like, yeah, that was what got me into EA, because they created the UFC video games. And so that was my jump. And that kind of gets to your other question about Ubisoft versus EA. I mean, they're definitely very different companies. Ubisoft actually has French roots, so their headquarters is in France, and then some of their offices are in like Montreal and Quebec. And so that's definitely a big part of their culture and why they do certain things their way. EA is actually is a bigger company based in Silicon Valley. And obviously the cultures there are very different, but also a lot of EA's pedigree and where they come from is that EA Sports background. And so licensing sports titles is a big part of EA. And then I think also the mobile gaming is kind of something that they've really succeeded on, like really huge. Like they took Star Wars, made those into a bunch of mobile games, and then from there got really, like, as far as who's doing mobile gaming well and making a ton of money, EA is killing it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, we could stick here on like a timeline of your background for a long time, but I would definitely want to get to like the larger conversations as they relate to what we wanted to talk about, which was media, which was where Web3 is going. So last question I really have is like what you're bringing over from those experiences and what you see. I always combo like two questions together, I guess. So what you're bringing over from that Web2 experience, right? But like what you see in Web3 brands doing this poorly? You know, because a lot of it is like mom and pop shop right now. We've had this discussion, you know, in just like Zoom calls, right? Like, I just kind of want you to break that down now that we're on the show, is like what you see Web3 brands doing that is not really what they should be doing, essentially.
Yeah. So, you know, there's actually a lot of art and thought and effort that goes into good branding. And so, you know, strategy being, you know, key to that, understanding audiences, understanding how to effectively communicate to those audiences, how to think about different platforms and channels as different parts of a larger overarching story and a narrative, and how they all feed back into objectives, right? That's the type of stuff that I bring into this space, and just my creative entrepreneurship of wanting to create like new experiences, new brands, and innovate, right? So I've always wanted to be at the sort of bleeding edge of technology and media and entertainment, and so NFTs are that. So that's what I bring in, is trying to really understand the technology, why it's innovative, and where all of this is going, and then think forward, you know, 5 years, 10 years in the future, and start building for that. And to me, the brands that are doing it well are understanding that part of it, that this is actually a marathon. It's not a sprint. You know, you can throw a lot of cliches about like not being short-sighted, not being, you know, cash grabby, or, you know, looking for the quick whatever, and basically not just treating it like another marketing channel, but really understanding that like this could be a core part of your brand in the future, or it might also be like a whole separate brand within your larger brand ecosystem. So I think, to me, that's the really good ones, the smart ones, are already understanding the potential for this technology, and get that this community is really, really valuable, and they treat them with the respect and the value that they can have for where they're going to go. Because, you know, this is going to be where a lot of your loyalists are. Like, you know, loyalty and rewards programs, that's going to be one of the, like, you know, you're going to be able to build brands backwards that way. Instead of building a brand and then like rewarding, you know, the few, you can start with the few and then build out of that. So obviously, like, loyalty and rewards, like this could be your core community, your core fan base in the future. But also, again, it's like, because it's its own thing with its own values, you might be able to create a whole different new business that feeds into your larger business. And anyway, I don't know. Those are some thoughts, but I think, just again, thinking about it long distance as a bigger opportunity.
I mean, you've been in the space long enough and been through this last cycle. Which projects, and I'm putting you on the spot here, like give me like 2 or 3 projects, other than, you can't say apes for the ones that are doing it well, but give me some projects that are doing it well, and I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Like, what projects maybe you think like are failing at that, or did fail in that branding perspective?
Okay, ones that are doing it well is actually easier for me to hit on this one, right? So Huxley Saga, I mean, what they're bringing is next level. They've got the execution, they've got the experience, and they're definitely looking at this as a much bigger thing. So Huxley Saga, Robotos, what Pablo Stanley and that whole team is building, you know, shout out Cas Vegas, like everybody that's on the Robotos team, they're building technology platforms for artists behind like all of the awesome creative, like the Robotos and the RoboPets and all that stuff. There's a bigger ecosystem, there's a bigger long-term, you know, infrastructure play that's happening with both of those projects. And then I think Warp Sounds is also a really interesting project. They're pushing forward music NFTs, but also transmedia storytelling. You know, they've got these digital characters, these digital music artists, four different characters within the Warp Sounds you know, project, and they're actually like touring. Like, they're going to Discords and touring and putting out music and a whole bunch of really cool art. And it, you know, there's the AI tech angle, there's the partnerships, there's the events. So those are 3 right there: Warp Sounds, Huxley, Robotos, projects that I love. I'm very bullish on. Projects that aren't doing well, I don't know. I mean, I don't pay as much attention to them, right? They don't get as
Yeah.
much attention, so it's almost harder for me to think of them. You know, you've touched on Gutter Cats, and I love Gutter Cats. I'm in it. I'm actually really here for it, and I love their event. So this is not me fighting, but one of the things that we touched on recently was they took a long time with their clone rollout. And I think that's actually a good criticism. I think that the clone rollout was not as big of a hit or as interesting as it could have been. So even though it by a lot of standards was probably successful and helped them expand the Gutter Cats ecosystem, which again I'm still very bullish on. I love Gutter Cats.
Gutter
I
Cats,
have
do
some.
not. We're not
I'm
butting you.
Yeah, I'm
please.
not. I'm not butting. We're being honest critique. You know, of what's good and what's bad, right? And I think, you know, you could argue that the clones were not quite as impactful or as well executed as they could have been, and that it was slow.
Well, here's another thing. Like the flip side of that, they're really good at activations like live events, right? Like the GutterCon in September, gonna be great. You know, like I already know that shit's gonna be fire. Like that's what they do well. You know.
Are you going? Who's going? Are you going to GutterCon?
I cannot go. I'm actually headed overseas. If anybody is going to be in Germany during Oktoberfest, my buddy is living in Germany now. I said I would go one time before he came back to the States. So I will not be at GutterCon, but my heart will be there. I'll send my cat.
I'm going to try and go. And to your point, actually, some of the best event activations I've ever been to are Gutter Cats. So yeah, I love them.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yo, a lot of love in the chat here for your Warp Sound shout out. So Easy and Crypto saying, hell yeah, Warp is dope as fuck. DJ Savage said, GIF would like Warp Sound. Def Paper handed that NFT. And Easy and Crypto saying, where's Gutterfest? Gutterfest is in Las Vegas, of course. That's like the only place that all of the cats get together. So, you know,
it's also the biggest gutter that there is, right? So let's go live in the gutter together, right?
What do you mean by gutter? Are you fading Las Vegas there?
That's what it's known for, right? I'm not fading it at all. They built a whole business and a whole city around, you know, what happens here stays here. What happens in the gutter stays in the gutter, right?
I feel that. All right, guys, I want to give a quick shout out to the people who are listening on audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can listen to us wherever, and I definitely want to give you guys a shout out for listening at home on audio platforms. So thank you very much for supporting the show. Give me a quick TLDR on where DBs are at and where Nifty Castle is here right now.
Yeah, so DB sold out a while ago, and we're just continuing to build that as, you know, skate brand, snowboarding, whatever we can do, activations, partnering with, you know, amazing skaters like Stevie Williams, launching Hexos. So this is like the biggest headline right now is that at NFT NYC, we actually rolled out a proof of concept for our own hot sauce, the DB's hot sauce called Hexos, and the first flavor, mild mischief. And so we're actually working on the marketplace for that right now, get online sales going so we can get it out to the people. But it was a massive hit. It's good on everything. It's like, you know, the eggs, the pizza, mac and cheese, hamburgers, like it's absolutely delicious. And, you know, with Hexos, I hope that's just like, you know, another extension or expression of the DB's brand that, you know, we can keep building it into the physical world, get more exposure, and also, you know, give people ways to keep interacting with the community. It was entirely community driven too, which is crazy. It happened out of our Discord. I'm very proud of it. Not just the fact that it's delicious, but it's cool. And then with Witchy GF, we moved that to a free mint and rewarded all of the collectors. We like airdropped a bunch of them to the collectors. And now what we're doing to get it minted all the way is we are actually partnering with awesome communities and offering those communities waitlist and free mint opportunities. So we're basically now just like going to like on a community basis and offering free mints to the communities that we love, and continuing to build that as well. I have to say on the Witchy GF front, Sketchnate is working on some really, really special stuff, and he's actually adding more animated traits to the art. So the art is already crazy. There's almost a thousand hand-drawn traits. They're all animated, and Sketchnate is still creating more animated traits. And I'm very excited about that.
Sketchnate's a great content creator. Like honestly, an editor, video editor, content creator, like his videos are legit.
He's an absolute living legend. He's a creative genius. Sketchnate, I love you. And yeah,
Yeah.
that guy's gonna be, yeah.
Yeah. Most important question here. It seems like it did come from the community, like you said. And hex sauce here. Like, how are you able to create hex sauce when you don't like to season your chicken?
Y'all who are listening to this may or may not already know. You can probably tell, but I'm very white, and you know how us honkies do it. We don't season our chicken. This is not how we get down. We like it bland.
Uh-huh.
It fills our souls, our waspy souls, with glee to just munch on some unseasoned chicken.
So you had to
wearing our while we're wearing our loafers at the dock. That's what we do. No, so it's a fair question. How did we get to have our own hot sauce, given that we don't know how to season anything properly? I have to shout out Biker. It's from our community. Biker is like one of the OGs, one of the dopest fucking dudes in the DB's community. And he happens to work at a factory in Florida and literally just started making samples and sending them to us. And without Biker, it never would have happened. But this happened over the course of a year of just like talking about it. And then it's real now. It's like a whole thing.
A quick lightning question here, because I want to move on to like the bigger combo. We're sitting at about 45 minutes. TLDR on, or lightning question for what you would do. I wouldn't say differently, but what you learn from creating your own PFP project. I think there's a lot of people that think that, PFPs, me included, I think PFPs have long-term viability. I know some people think that they're like this passing phase and it was part of this last cycle, but I think there will be a space for digital identity, at least in the short term, while Twitter is still the predominant media platform where you're able to share who you are via that little circle on Twitter. Those will all be spaces that want to be filled up by somebody owning an NFT. That's my thesis there. So what did you take from building your own PFP project and taking into like your next endeavor?
Oh, so much, man. I mean, because there's the whole like technology aspect of it, which is crazy. And so we could do a whole episode just talking about like the different aspects of learning the technology, fixing things, trying different things and experimenting. With DBs early on, one of the things that we learned was just to hide your metadata until it's all metadata. It's like small things like that, but that make a big difference in the execution of an actual launch. With WitchyGF, we really pushed our own like technological capabilities, because we had one of our devs actually created a custom pipeline to handle multiple animated inputs and outputs, and then created ways for us to be QAing everything. One of the things that I learned that I think we've done very, very well, but has been hit home and something I see a lot of projects fail at, is the importance of good quality control, QAing. That is one of the most important parts of making a project really, really high quality, making the final product something that I think will accrue value long term, and why I'm very bullish on the things that we're building, because we pay very, very close attention to the detail and the art first. And what a lot of projects do is they create a bunch of layers, they run them through a pipeline, slap them together, and then they don't want to take the time or have the tools to go through thousands of pieces of art to actually troubleshoot, or they just don't want to go back. Yeah, or they don't want to go back and fix minor issues, because it can take days to go back and actually redo that and get those updates into the process, recreate all the art. It's a major thing. And so, yeah, that's one thing that I'll just say to anybody out there is budget time and energy to the actual QA, and don't be stingy on that part of it, because to me, if you've got bad art, if you've got mistakes in the art, how's it going to accrue value long term, right? Mm-hmm. Like, to me, the whole project is tainted by the 10 or 15 or 20 pieces of art that have weird cigars sticking through the helmet or whatever it is. So yeah, QAing is a massive part, and figure out early on how you're going to achieve that. There are technological tools that can help you do that now, create exceptions and all that. So I don't know. That's one example.
You've been diving into Tezos a little bit, and I really want to get your take on whether today, if you were to create Witchy GF or create DBs again, would you be looking harder at another chain like a Tezos or a Polygon or these things that have been built out since the you launched? All of these platforms and all of these protocols have gained significant users, ecosystem, like all of this different things. Would you look at those different protocols today?
Yeah, I think I'd look at them differently. I am, to your point, I'm like a newly minted Tez head, or I'm trying to be. I started my Kukai wallet recently, and we've been doing episodes. GWA's been coming in and schooling me on everything Tezos and generative art. I've been discovering, the really vibrant community of artists and creators and the cool projects that are on the Tezos blockchain. So I think I would consider them. I don't think I would consider them for DBs or WitchyGF specifically. I think to me, both of those projects were specifically developed and created for Ethereum. And to me, they're like kind of like tentpole, high quality collectibles and brands, right? And to me, it's like that's still the best place to be launching a business or a brand is on Ethereum. However, I think for different types of projects, or even maybe smaller, more limited editions, like if we were doing something that was 1,000 or a couple hundred, especially, like I'd definitely be considering Tezos. Absolutely.
Awesome, man. All right.
Solana, I don't know. I'm iffy. I'm iffy on Solana right now.
All right. I want to move into a little bit more of like the headier discussion, which is around how you see media forming here over the next couple of years and into this next adoption cycle. What you're doing with Web3 now is essentially like your first foray or first like step towards what you're looking to build with Web3. So what do you make of media today as it exists in the NFT and Web3 space, and what are you building?
Yeah, I think you would agree. I think most people would agree that there's a lot of issues with our current media apparatus and like the media industry in general, like from the way that it's incentivized. A lot of it's just driven on clickbaits, and like the mainstream news media is literally just about how inflammatory can we be, how can we use negative news and like scary graphics to literally just like scare people into keep watching, right? So there's the existing media infrastructure as it's currently operating that I think needs to be disrupted and is going to be disrupted. And obviously, like we've seen, the trust has been eroded in media. And more specific to Web3 and NFTs and what we're doing, so much of the current conversation is being dictated by people outside of the community that actually don't really know what the fuck they're talking about. Like, let's be honest, right? Like, if you have the New York Times writing an article about NFTs, how unbiased or on point is that going to be? Probably not really accurate or not really true to like what's really happening at the ground level, right?
And then the flip side being the people that do understand often don't do it in a broad enough way where it's reaching enough people, right?
Or it's all co-opted by pay to play and like people that are pumping their own bags too. Like there's not a lot of really honest, good, analysis, high quality editorial, curatorial content. There's not really any good leaders out there. NFT now is doing some things really well, and I look at them as like, okay, they're definitely at the forefront of creating Web3 media right now. And there's a couple others, shout out Nifty Alpha. Like I think they're doing some really good stuff with what they're doing. I've got some portals, and sometimes I jump in and participate. But I think that there's a massive opportunity for us to create something that's it's FUBU, it's for us by us, and I think that we can do it better than any of the existing media outlets. And so Web3 is what I think, we're trying to, again, think long term, plant a flag, and start building an infrastructure and a platform for our community to provide real value back to the community in that high quality editorial, curatorial style content. And I've been talking to you a lot about this because we're looking to partner in different ways. And one of the ways, and I just want to take a step back also and like give you your flowers, Q, because like what you've been doing for the last couple of years is building that. Like you have a platform and a foundation here with LADZ City and NFT Live that you've been pouring your heart and soul and resources into that I think is undervalued. Like I see the value in it, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir here, right? Because probably anybody that's listening or watching this right
Yep.
now, like they probably already know like Q's the GOAT. Like y'all probably already know that, right?
Shout out to the community as well that has been here. Some from like almost the very beginning, right? So definitely a big shout out to the community members that have been around. But yeah, go ahead. No, keep lavishing me, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no. So the point is like I want to keep partnering with you and finding ways that we can make each other better and not compete, but like look at this bigger picture vision together of what's really happening and then what's possible. Like how do we take what you've already been doing with this amazing network of creators, contributors, this amazing content network that is LADZ City, that is NFT Live? How do we take that, to that next level of production value, of actual value for the community? How do we keep pushing this and building on top of this amazing foundation that you've already created to ultimately create that home for the Web3 community and disrupt media and create something more valuable and different from what's already being done?
Yeah, if you guys don't and can't pick up on this, there's some rumblings that may affect you who are listening at home here in the very near future. If you're listening to us on even YouTube, podcasts, wherever you're listening to us, it might affect us. I'm a big history like buff. I love studying history, and I love making like stupid analogies that relate to like anything in the day to day. And what you remind me of is like in the timeline that we're in right now is like the Native Americans as the Americans were or the English were like coming over, and like they did not band together whatsoever. Like not until the end, not until the very end when it was already too late did they band. And that's what's gonna in a way happen to a lot of the
crypto natives. Yeah. I mean, let's not culturally appropriate, the struggle of Native Americans, but also there's a parallel in terms of, they succumbed, I think is the right word, I think, to Western, colonialism, largely because they didn't have the means or the tools or the impetus at the time to figure out collectively how to band together and fight them off. And no, it's like, again, like I'm not an expert on history, and I do not want us to go too far down that rabbit hole. But I do think there's crypto natives in the space that have been building the space that care very much, that are kind of like the first ones that lived in the space, right? To your point of this metaphor. And Web2 and all the existing power structures are going to be coming in. They are coming in really quickly. What if, we could use the tools together to kind of protect at least part of that in a more effective way. I think it is a good metaphor, but I think it's also a dangerous one. So
I mean, again, if you're messing with history, like you're always dancing around, like potentially, getting people mad at you. One thing I will say, I am Mexican, so I can say this, like, or I'm half Mexican. I'm not anyways. Mexicans actually are the original, natives in Mexico, the Aztecs. They fell prey to the same thing. A lot of people don't know this. They think that like Cortez just like came in and rode on a chariot and just took over the city, the Mexico City at the time. It was actually infighting between the tribes as well. So going back to that analogy again, if Web3 natives don't kind of like work together or figure out how to scale, this next adoption cycle is the one where they get eaten, where they completely, where it's like, yeah, good luck, So yeah, I don't want to say too far.
Yeah,
if you don't, go ahead.
Well, no, it's and the reason is because you can't compete with the resources that a lot of these other teams and companies have. Like there's just no way. You can't compete with Meta. You can't compete even with like these, other larger brands and agencies that are already coming in and co-opting the space. There's just no way that you as an island or even as a small team can compete. And so, it is about resources. It is about like how do we come together and scale together and protect what we can and have our own voice, have our own, say in this larger industry that's developing. Because, you've kind of alluded to it a couple different ways in this new adoption cycle or whatever. Like we're at, I'm sure most people know what an adoption curve looks like. A technology adoption curve, it's a bell. We're at this point. We're at the inflection point, like right now, right? And so that next adoption curve is when mainstream really starts to come into it. And are we going to be there or are we not? Are we going to be eaten or are we going to, thrive?
Yeah, I love that take. Hopefully we did not offend anyone with our history analogies. We will bump out of that now. And I want to get back to what you're physically doing here with GM Web3 specifically. Like, why go about the Twitter Spaces route directly as kind of your first foray into, creating content, quote unquote, and like, where do you see that going next other than partnering with other groups?
Because it's easy. Like straight up, like you can hop into Twitter. That's why it's taken off and why there's so many creators using it right now for NFTs, right? It's a great tool. It's super easy. To your point, I can roll out of bed. I can, look whatever way I want. I can, start up a room and, get some friends on stage and there you go. And so, excuse me, GM Web3 was literally just like the first expression of the larger Web3 vision that I could just go start doing basically by myself. And I got, a crew, I got a group chat of some of my favorite artists and contributors and thinkers in the space. And I'm just like programming it with them, Yeah, I'll add you to it, Q. You're part of it now. You've been showing up. Now you're showing up, bro.
End the stream. I got it. We're
done. No, like you, I also, I respect that you have your own community and your own network that you're running. And so I don't want to be blowing you up with group chats all the time, trying to program our show, no, straight up. I'm honest with it. That's why I haven't included you, but I would love to have you in it. It's basically just, a hive mind, in a text chat right now, programming a show 4 days a week. And that's all it is. It's super easy. It was a way to just start, building organically. It is very organic, Twitter Spaces, and it's easy to do it. But how do we keep growing? The event we did a 4-day event at NFT NYC called
dope.
Web3 Lounge, and there was like 15 different partners. 4 days we programmed, and so that was the Web3 Lounge was the first event version or expression of the Web3 brand, and that was incredibly successful and really, really cool, right? So right now it's about the proof of concept. It's about proving out that this brand can be expressed in these different ways, that we can grow it organically. And then I think the next step is, what we're talking about, which is formalizing, the team, formalizing certain partnerships, getting more of the structure in place, and then leveling up our production capabilities and pushing to the next level and, getting resources, financing, so that we can compete.
How important are IRL experiences and a physical IRL location as it's related to building a brand? Like, is it necessary? I feel like you gave me a lot of
it's not necessary.
Yeah,
it's not necessary, right? Yeah, especially in the metaverse, like you absolutely do not need it. However, it can be incredibly valuable and give you a lot of new business opportunities and like revenue streams, as well as like making your brand much stickier, right? Because you're creating more experiences, more tangible experiences. You're tapping into your community, providing value in a lot more ways that they can actually like see and feel and hear and interact with, right? And that, we talked about this recently on GM Web3, which is, the value of those experiences is it creates much more loyalty. Brand loyalty is very, very hard to come by, especially with internet brands and things like that. And with an NFT, it's equally hard, I think, at this point, because it's so saturated, to really get diehard loyal fans of whatever IP or project or art that you're creating. Having those IRL pop-ups or events or experiences, it makes that whole idea tangible, right? They can feel it, they can interact with it, they can see that you're real, they can talk to you, they can feel your presence, and they can see the other people in real life and make those connections. And that really like buttons up the whole thing. It just makes it tighter, right? You're like, oh, now I'm glued into something. It's bigger than myself.
It did feel like, because the NFT space really, was catalyzed in that COVID environment when we were at home, it felt like we kind of like latched on to that for a little bit of time, saying like, oh, we don't, need, this was a time when you didn't want to go back to work either. Like you were going to work from home for the rest of your life, which is cool. Like if you want to do that,
Still don't want to go back to work, bro.
No,
what are you talking about?
That's fine. But some people want to. And the point I'm trying to make, just to hammer it home, is that like, I feel like our space was really against maybe like, or felt like this was like somehow native to Web3, was like, we need to be on Discords and we need to do all these things. And lo and behold, when we all got together in NYC or LA or wherever these events are, it was like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like seeing your, quote unquote, metaverse or Web3 or NFT community friends in real life absolutely glued that bond together. You know what I mean? Like, I even feel like I know you better because we got to meet in person, and we were at the same crazy ass party. We probably talked for like all of 15 minutes throughout the whole thing, but I feel like more connected to you in that way. So,
absolutely, man. Pressing skin together, whatever, shaking hands and fist bumping and giving hugs and like, yeah, no, it was weird. Yeah, I was just trying to borrow some friction from a friend, man. That's why I was there. No, like it makes it way more real. It is, and it's hard to overstate like the value of that still, especially in the new metaverse and digital economy in which we spend so much of our lives tapped in to these metaverses, the Twitterverse or whatever. Yeah, man, it's getting to meet you was a highlight of that entire trip. The networking and getting to hang out with my favorite people is always the highlight. That's why we go and do the satellite events, to just network and create really awesome, like we curate vibes, we curate experiences and people together to create awesome vibes, awesome experiences for everybody. And it's been so rewarding. Now everybody I hang out with is from NFTs and Clubhouse.
Yeah. I know it felt like we were just shitting on metaverse pieces there, right? Like, oh, it's all about IRL stuff, but take me through and this might be my last question before we wrap up. I also want to open it up to the chat as well. If you guys have any questions for Gift before he gets out of here, now is the time. But utility for the metaverse, right? Like I think we've seen over the past year or two, projects start to really, latch on and build more than just kind of an idea in that metaverse sense. The other side being a great example, like being able to get in there and actually start to have like good experiences. The project you had that on this morning, you guys were in there. Like the metaverse experiences, to your point, are more in the adolescent phase than the baby phase, that it used to be in. So give me your take on the metaverse as it stands today.
Yeah, well, I think to your point, or what we were talking about earlier, it is still in that like awkward phase that nobody really can get a handle on. The utility hasn't been there, right? So like, there's probably not a lot of people, I'd love to know in the chat, how many people actually spend a lot of time in any of the virtual worlds right now. It's probably not that many. I know, I go into crypto voxels now and then, or voxels now. I go into voxels now and then. I hang out. I go to a gallery show or something here and there. A lot of them look cool, but there's just not a lot of adoption yet. There's not a lot happening there. There's not a lot of daily active users and monthly active users because the utility and the infrastructure hasn't really been there. Just to make it more valuable and more useful in your day-to-day life. What's really cool that, I got to see this morning, we got to talk with Luis Fernandez, who is, a world-renowned designer. He's well-known for architecture and fashion. He's just an amazing guy and an amazingly talented designer. He's been working for over a year on creating these meta estates villas. It is an NFT, a limited edition NFT of 100 of this designer home. It's digital real estate that he designed over the course of a year with a small team. It's a beautiful villa that has some utility. It's the first time that I've seen like kind of the future of like, oh, now I'm starting to understand and get why I would spend a half an ETH or 100 ETH on a piece of digital real estate, because the infrastructure is starting to be there. And so what he did is he partnered with a company called Metamundo, which is like that distribution infrastructure layer that helps create the interoperability, which is one of the most important utilities of any metaverse. And so now when you buy this NFT, you're not just getting one villa, you're actually getting a villa that has multiple versions that can scale across all of the metaverses and be customized and tailored, to those. And it's also from a world-renowned artist, and it's just absolutely beautiful. You can obviously use it as a gallery, but you can host different events in it. So it's the first time that I've looked at a piece of digital real estate and been like, oh, now I understand, like, this is the equivalent of buying, like owning a piece of art that is a home, like a Gary or a Gaudi, like a really nice, like designer home in the metaverse. What if you could have a piece of art that you could live in the metaverse? It's the first time that I'm kind of seeing that vision of like where it's going and the utility starting to come in.
He mentioned a lot of pieces there, like a lot of things I could probably take that he mentioned probably way more sophisticatedly than I can, right? Like the one thing that I kind of took from it was bigger, and we keep going to bigger brands, but like larger companies that have money can do a lot of things that maybe smaller teams can't. And one of the points, and I don't know if it was Andy or him, but they had gone to like some like Cessna or private jet event, and those companies were using VR and what can be called the metaverse. It might not be, owned by, everybody that's there and all these things, but they had people in there. They had people in the metaverse experiencing what essentially was them connecting with the retail user, which is the point I'm kind of bringing it back to. Is I think that was where it clicked for me. It's like, oh, brands are going to use this as like the next evolution of a website. You're going to be able to go.
What if you could own the Getty Villa in the metaverse and you could host your events there? Like that's what Luis Fernandez basically is dropping today, is you can basically own the Getty Villa that can now live in whatever metaverse, whatever virtual world. Like there's already like 10 different virtual worlds that this can like go be in through this one NFT.
The Getty Villa, I'm just not as classy as you. I have no idea what the heck a Getty Villa is. What is a Getty Villa?
You got to come out to LA, bro. Come visit in LA. I'll take you. It's a really well-known, museum out here. It's beautiful, and so that's basically, I think, a good example of what's being created. But you can own it. It's not just like a museum. It's like you own that museum in the metaverse.
You're gonna trap me if I move out there, I think, or if I head out there. I won't be coming back. Asmodai saying, loving my on cyber gallery. Some mad features being added, including multi-layer and portraits. Easy and Crypto saying, what about Webverse? Public drop is live, I believe. Do you know anything about Webverse?
I've seen it, but I haven't spent any time on it, so I don't want to sound like an idiot trying to talk about something I don't know that much about. But I think
we do that all the time here.
But the creator is Web, right? Like I think he's a super talented creator, I believe, the guy behind it. And so I'm bullish on artist driven, artist led projects in general.
Yeah, easy. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to talk sophisticatedly about this topic, so we will move on, which is not something we do often. Guys, we are about an hour and 10 minutes in, so we are going to wrap up here. Gif, is there anything we didn't touch on today that you kind of want to wrap up with or finish with?
I mean, I would just love to know from anybody that is listening, like hanging out in the comments, like if there's any specific topics that you would love educational content on, because, again, one of the ways that I think that, we can partner together to keep leveling up the value that this network is providing, keep, taking the content that, pipeline and everything that you've been building with this foundation and keep pushing that and providing more value to the community is through high quality educational content. And so I know that that's something that I'm really interested in and that I'm working on. And I know, Q, you have a lot of interest in education and onboarding too. So if anybody has specific topics that you think it would be awesome to get some high quality YouTube tutorials or educational content on, let us know in the comments, because we're going to be paying attention. I can tell you Tezos, like the whole onboarding into Tezos is something that I'm definitely going to be creating a series on.
Love the comments coming through the chat. GIF, here's the name for the series. Are you ready? You be super serious with rating this 1 out of 10. GIF tips.
Yeah,
6. We're getting there. It's my first guess.
It's like a 3.5.
What?
It's like a 3.5, bro.
No, rate
out of 2.
Rate, a 3. Okay, all right. Yo, rate this in the chat. Rate gift tips in the chat. If it's above 7 average, we're gonna have to just go with it. Well, I'm sorry. No, I'm joking.
This is already a DAO. All right, we got the DAO going. It's full control. Community. Yeah, let's go.
I love it. I love it. Guys, I appreciate you showing up today, as well as tuning in on audio if you did tune in via all the audio platforms. We are going to get out of here. I'm going to wait a little bit for some comments to come through to see if we have any comments come through for educational content. GIF, if you can drop your, where people can follow you, if you want them to follow Web3, drop your links, and then maybe we get some time.
Yeah, I'm Gifdead everywhere. That's me, Gifdead.e. It's on Twitter, on Instagram, anywhere that you can go. Xbox Live, come play Rocket League with me. Yeah, that's it. Look for me, Gifdead, and then Web3 with 3 3s, W3BTHR33. That's it on Twitter if you want to join the Morning Alpha Show, the greatest morning alpha show ever created, GM Web3. 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. Nifty Q is going to be joining the group chat, apparently.
Now I'm official. So, do I get to be like a co-host officially now, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, dude, you can co-host anytime you show up, bro. You already know. You're already one of my favorite contributors, even when you're not contributing. So.
All right, so I've got 2 comments, and then we will get up out of here. Asmodai saying GIF headspace. So
okay. That's at least I like it more than gift tips. I'm not gonna lie.
Wow.
I mean, yours is pithy. Yours is pithy, but yeah.
Easy and Crypto saying wearing my Hexspawn DB's shirt today, and then I think that will be the last comment. That might as well be where we head out of here.
You can't beat that.
Yeah, exactly.
Big love. Appreciate you
guys. Our Vibe, our Tribe Nifty Q show is going to be here on Thursday. We will be doing an NFT live here tomorrow as well. I will be on the GM Web3 show as well. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Love you guys. Our Vibe, our Tribe.
Our Vibe, our Tribe.